one of our case study that we implemented for logistics supply chain customer. So basically, this customer is similar to the use case that I talked about early. So they don't, meaning in a day one, they did not have anything from a data warehouse standpoint. So we quickly went in and spinned up a quick data warehouse for them, like within kind of 4 week span of time. And then on top of it, we have enabled the SuperInsight for them. And one of the concern that they had is also the same. They had like almost like 7,000 plus reports that they had from a canned report standpoint, and they had almost like 150 plus kind of interactive Power BI reports. And but all of it were running based off of the transaction database, which is like taking too much burden on the transaction database, and it's not performant enough. And they weren't able to run all the reports in the right time, and because your transaction database is causing all the slowness in it. And so basically when we came in, what we did is we enabled quickly like a data warehouse for them and brought in only the critical data that they wanted to solve within a 4 weeks, and primarily brought in two different kind of subject areas. One is like operation, two is finance. That pretty much cover the entire business that they were focused upon. And in that, if you know, like meaning all of you have dealt with finance and operation in time, to give a background. So we brought in all the kind of account payable, account receivable, and from an operation standpoint, we brought all the inventories, orders, and kind of fulfillment against the order. And we brought all of this information from it. And then like how we fulfill the kind of shipment with the carriers, and we brought the data in it. So basically it came down to 16 different tables, like on what we had to develop to support the SuperInsight aspect of it. So we quickly brought it up in the data warehouse layer. And then on top of it, we have enabled SuperInsight. And that's where like we brought in like individual kind of RAG model on top of it. So basically we collected all the Q&As from meaning existing customer, and we created a knowledge base on top of that. And if you see the diagram right now, so like when user could able to directly go to Slack and ask a question, and we have two different layers in it. Like if you see in the top layer, that's where all our Q&A happens in it. That's where the first block goes in. And in the top layer, like our questions, whatever the user asks for, it'll go back to the kind of AI, and it understands what the question is, and it produces a SQL query. We already provided the metadata of our data warehouse, and all of that is present in it. And AI will directly understand that particular data, and then it generates a SQL query, and it sends it back to the data warehouse or a database, and then it runs a query against it and gives the result back to the user directly. And if the user liked the report, or like for example, you're asking a question around, hey, I wanted to get a sales report of the current month, and you like the report of the AI outcome, and you can go to the second layer in the diagram where you can ask to kind of say, like, I wanted to get this report scheduled to send it to me on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis. And then we consume it based upon that. And we also have a mechanism to watch it. So if they are not often using it, so sometimes they schedule it, they never open the report, and we send a notification back to them saying like, hey, you haven't used it for this many days. Like, can you confirm, are you still using this and all of that? And then we still circulate back to the user as well. So this is what we did for logistics and supply chain, and give it back to Sid to talk about the next use case.
And Ranjit, I think two things I want to add on here is, data privacy was obviously a concern with this customer and in the way we built it. And that's the same concern we see across the board, right? It doesn't just apply to this customer. And that's why we made sure that SuperInsight is a solution that lives within our customer's environment, and it's not a SaaS tool in itself. And it's something that we take those 4 weeks that there to actually deploy and implement it within that customer's data warehouse and in that customer schema, and something we wouldn't have access to, right? And I think the other thing was also, like you were talking about, Ranjit, at the end, the tool also helps prevent the reporting overhaul of like the numerous reports that are still there that we still like have no idea who's using and when they're using it, and basically narrows it down to the reports that are being used. Because I think one interesting metric that isn't captured here is we took those 7,000 reports and through this process really analyzed it, and we're able to identify that really only 10 of those reports were really being used, but then 10 with small tweaks and variations here and there, which is why SuperInsight is the perfect augmentation layer for this reporting platform.